Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia Online, a church striving to embody courageous love, radical welcome, and deep connection. Now more than ever, it is important for us to gather and remember that our church is not a building, but a beloved community of all of us together. I am Connie Ordway, a member of this congregation, and I am so glad to welcome you to our community. Although we all miss gathering in person on Sundays, the online services have given us an opportunity to connect with many people we might not have met otherwise. We welcome in particular the members of the Jefferson City Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, as well as all of you in Missouri and beyond. A few comments about protocol for today's online worship. We are in Zoom and streaming live on Facebook. We are in Zoom webinar mode, and so we can't hear or see you. Feel free to eat your breakfast in your PJs, and don't worry if your dog is barking or your children are making joyful noises. You will be able to say hello and to interact with the service through the chat feature. Make sure you select panelists and attendees so everyone can see your comment. This will be particularly useful if you wish to share a joy or sorrow when we reach that portion of the service. If this is your first time with us, please fill out a digital visitor's card at the link provided in the chat. Let us know a little bit about you. This morning's service is the next in our series on our theological diversity, when we hear from several of our members about their approach to a big question. This week's question is sacred spaces. Where do you find them? Thank you to Rosie Geyser for joining Jeff Ordway and me in order to share our thoughts. Thank you also to our tech host, Jenny Boseler, and our religious educator, Jamila Batchelder, music director, Jeremy Wagner, and pianist, Hans Heruth. Please relax and enjoy our prelude.
Our opening words this morning are from Joseph Campbell. Sacred space is an absolute necessity for anybody today. You must have a room or a certain hour or so a day where you don't know what was in the newspapers that morning, you don't know who your friends are, you don't know what you owe anybody, and you don't know what anybody owes to you. This is a place where you can simply experience and bring forth what you are and what you might be. This is the place of creative incubation. At first, you may find that nothing happens here. But if you have a sacred place and use it, something eventually will happen. Come, let us worship together. And will you please join me in singing the hymn that, if you had your hymnals, would be number 113, Where is Our Holy Church? You may now wish to light a candle at home or to look in the chat for a digital chalice. And if you will join me as we light our chalices, the symbol of our faith, at home or digitally, will you join me in lifting your voices in homes across our city, our country, and our world to share our weekly words of affirmation? Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. Recently, I was out driving doing errands when I got a phone call with some really devastating news. And I was so upset I could barely even drive. And without even quite realizing it, I drove and found myself in the church parking lot. And I realized how much I wanted to be in my sacred place while trying to come to terms with tragedy. And it made me think how hard it's been in these months when we haven't been able to be in our church building, in our sanctuary, to have a space that holds all the different things that we're feeling, and that the space itself nurtures our spirit. Luckily, the world is filled with many, many sacred places. And for our centering today, I want us to try to think about how the place you're in right now, wherever it is, I'm in my living room, is a sacred place for you. And so I was thinking about some of the elements that make a sacred space. And so first, take a deep breath in our centering. One of the things we are looking for is comfort in a sacred space. So what in the room that you're in right now brings you comfort? Just take a moment to appreciate the feeling of comfort that comes from that object or item. We also look for beauty in our sacred space, a space that inspires us and lifts us up. So look around your room and find something that is transcendently beautiful, in big ways or in small. Just really take a moment to appreciate it. Our sacred spaces are places of memory. They're filled with all the other moments that have occurred in that space, those sacred moments. And so think of what memory your room holds for you. Be it memories of joy, spiritual practice, of laughter, tears. What memories are in this room that make it sacred to you? And finally, there are infinite reasons a place can become sacred, but the final one I want to talk about today is what we bring to it, that we bring our spirit, all of us who are in the space, the way we carry ourselves differently when we're in that space. And so I want us to take a moment to put our energy into this space. So first, I want you to just really try to plant your soul downward, to ground yourself into the space, to put your sense of steadiness as the floor of this room that you're in. And when you have done that, when we're in a sacred space, I think we feel our most expansive, our most able to be vulnerable. So take a moment to just feel a sense of openness and let your spirit fill up this room all the way to the rafters, to the ceiling, to whatever is above you, whatever space you're in. Open your heart into this space. Let's take a few more deep breaths. Just really try to appreciate that which is sacred, that is right here with us right now.
Our reading this morning is from the book The Sacred and the Profane by Mircea Eliade. It could be said that the history of religions, from the most primitive to the most highly developed, is constituted by a great number of hierophanies, by manifestations of sacred realities. In each case, we are confronted by the same mysterious act, the manifestation of something of a wholly different order. A reality that does not belong to our world, that is in objects that are an integral part of our natural profane world. The modern person experiences a certain uneasiness before many manifestations of the sacred. They find it difficult to accept the fact that for many human beings, the sacred can be manifested in stones or trees, for example. It is impossible to overemphasize the paradox represented by every hierophany, even the most elementary. By manifesting the sacred, any object becomes something else, yet it continues to remain itself. For it continues to participate in its surrounding cosmic milieu. A sacred stone remains a stone. Nothing distinguishes it from all other stones. But for those to whom a stone reveals itself as sacred, its immediate reality is transmuted into a supernatural reality. This morning, 3 of us will be sharing our thoughts on sacred spaces. The first is going to be Connie Ordway, who will be talking to us about the metaphysical aspect, the different levels of sacred spaces and where she finds them.
I practice pagan traditions. This is how I find sacred space. During our ritual Sabbats, our pagan group Kaleidoscope often does meditation journeys to otherworldly places, a practice called pathworking. It is in that place, which is no place, that I find my peace, my comfort, my opportunity to commune with spirits. I often speak to my dead mother, for example, on these journeys. Strangely, she is much gentler with me now than she ever was when she was alive. I want to take you on one of these journeys now. This will necessarily be a shorter journey than I would normally practice, since I only have 5 to 7 minutes with you. But I have often found that time out of time stretches or contracts to accommodate whatever time my corporeal body has available to it. So now, settle in comfortably with both feet on the floor, your hands in your lap, and your eyes closed. Begin to breathe deeply and consciously, following your breath as it enters your nose and mouth, travels to your lungs, and releases again. Bring your breathing to a deep, gentle, calm place. If you find your mind wandering, bring it back to follow the breath. In your mind's eye, see yourself at the edge of a large verdant woods, surrounded by the chirping of cicadas and the smell of lush greenery. It is midday and gloriously mild and bright. You stand at the beginning of a dirt path that travels through the woods. Step onto that path and enter the woods. You feel the crunch of tiny branches underfoot as you go deeper into the trees. It gets dark the farther you go. Only some diffuse sunlight enters here. You travel for a good while, realizing as you walk that you're beginning to release the built-up tension in your shoulders, your neck, your belly, your face, It is peaceful here, and you feel completely safe. Traveling along this path, you see more and more sunlight as the trees slowly give way to a large open meadow. You come to the edge of this meadow and notice the sweet fragrance and bright coloring of hundreds of glorious flowers. And you can see that butterflies and bees are quietly visiting many of these blooms in their search for nectar. You look all around the meadow, and then you see that there is a large, lushly green tree near the middle, with a cozy bench beneath it. You begin to walk toward this welcoming rest spot, and then you see someone sitting on the bench. You smile as you recognize who it is that waits for you, and your heart is glad when you realize that you will visit for a while. Go to them. Sit down. Listen to what they are saying. The time has come to say goodbye. You thank your visitor lovingly, and they smile and walk away. And now it is your turn to walk away, back the way you came. Find the footpath and wend your way back through the trees. Say goodbye to the glorious warm sun now lower in the sky. And thank the birds and beasts who guided you here today. You reach the edge of the woods where you began. With gratitude for the gift you have received, you gently open your eyes as you become fully present in this body, in this time, at this place. What is my sacred space? It is a tree in the middle of a meadow where the weather is always mild, the sun is always shining, the fragrance of flowers is always in my nostrils, and my favorite people come to a wooden bench to visit me. And I can go there anytime at all. Blessed be.
Now is the time in our service when we hold one another in heart across the distance, knowing that our community is with us and that we are held in love amid life's sorrows and joys alike, now and always. I'll begin by sharing the joys and sorrows submitted on our website, and then I will invite those gathered to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. So let us share joy with Bill and Dolores Clark, who celebrate their 65th wedding anniversary this past week, and with Bill, who will celebrate his 88th birthday on Tuesday. I now invite you to share your own joys and sorrows in the chat, and I will read aloud as many as I enable. Sydney Kent says that they have a sorrow that their friend's mom got cancer early. Pack and Rebecca share the joy of their daughter Zoe's engagement to Lucas Thompson. Sarah Wolcott shares that they have a joy that they made it back to Maine. Yes, Katie Ensign goes back to work with children tomorrow, and they are apprehensive. Ancient powers of love and light, we offer up the joys, challenges, and sorrows of our congregations, our loved ones, and our world. We seek to remain grounded in love, connected through love, and we hold these things that have been shared closely with one another. We also know that there are joys that are too great, challenges and sorrows that are too personal to share here, and we hold those closely as well. Let those who need comfort find comfort, and may the world be a better place because of the work we do, the love we share, and the connections we create. So may it be. Our second speaker this morning is Rosie Geyser. She will be sharing with us some of her thoughts on a more physical sacred space.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm delighted to offer my thoughts on sacred space. For me, it is anywhere I can pause and reflect on what is sacred to me. Sometimes it's a place in nature, and sometimes it's a special place in my home. It's wherever I can create mental, emotional, and energetic space to cultivate spiritual practices in my life. Now, sacred space doesn't even have to be an actual place. I've learned over the years that incorporating mindfulness is another way of thinking about sacred space. During mindful moments in my day, I can access my spiritual center or focus on being my highest self. Now, of course, mindfulness practice is easier said than done, and having a specific location and time helps tremendously. Jamelia and Connie gave us a good start on thinking about our sacred space. When I create sacred space, I reflect on my intention for this space. What do I hope to do in it? What will it add to my life? How often or when will I use it? I also consider whether I'll share it with anyone else, or is it just for me? Will others help create it, use it, add to it? Many have found that once they have clarity on the purpose of their sacred space, they can begin to look for a peaceful and uncluttered area. Now, if free space is limited for you in your home, you may need to get creative. You may need to look, say, a corner or a closet floor, maybe a bookshelf or a windowsill. And sacred space can also be as simple as your favorite chair or pillow. You could even have a portable sacred space, filling a box with objects that are meaningful to you, and you bring them out at a time when you want to create your sacred space. And of course, your sacred space may be outdoors, the garden, a favorite hiking or biking trail, a spot by a lake. I think you're getting the picture. Sacred space is wherever you can feed your soul. If you wish to have objects in your space, you will want the items to also speak to your soul in a way that's both nurturing and inspiring. These objects could be something precious you already have, maybe inspirational quotes or photographs, crystals, devotional statues, prayer beads, or something you found in nature, flowers, stones, seeds, perhaps maybe special souvenirs from traveling. That is, when we get to travel again. When using your sacred space, you may want to incorporate small rituals, such as lighting a candle or a chalice with intention and reverence as a way to invoke the sacred, similar to what we do when we gather for our Sunday service, like we did this morning. Most importantly, though, is using your sacred space. Dedicate whatever time is appropriate for you, 5, 10, 30 minutes a day, to sit, stand, walk, or just be in your space, whether it's first thing in the morning or in the evening after the busyness of the day. It's helpful to choose a consistent time when there will be no interruptions and you can step away from all those electronics. These are ways that I use my sacred space and time. It's usually first thing in the morning with a cup of tea. I may set an intention for the day, express gratitude, sit quietly with awareness to see what surfaces, ask what I need to know regarding a specific situation and wait for an answer, or ask for inspiration on how to become more compassionate, more loving. I've found that my sacred space has evolved over time, or new ones were added, depending upon how my life was changing or what was going on. So you too may find that your space evolves over time. Here are some pictures of ways that I've incorporated sacred space in my life. I set this up in my office where I see clients. It's a shelf by the window and has simple, neutral items. I was looking for things that were calming and would appeal to the majority of people that I see. On my favorite hiking trail is a magnificent bur oak. And when I stand by it with my spine pressed against the trunk, I literally feel the earth's energy coming up from its deep roots and filling my being. Definitely a sacred moment on my hike. My ritual before meditating or seeing clients is to use the sound of a bell or incense to clear any unneeded energy from the space where I am. And this is an altar that my spouse, Dottie, and I share in a dedicated area of our home. We found this piece of furniture when we first got together. It holds many objects that are special to both of us and have accumulated over the years. The chalice was made for our commitment ceremony 20 years ago. And this is a favorite place for both of us, either together or separately, depending upon the circumstances, for our daily meditation and reflection. It's important to keep in mind that there's no right or wrong way to create or use your sacred space. Just do what feels right to you. I have found that these sanctuaries are a gift I give myself every day. It has helped me be more grounded so I can live more consciously. It gives me perspective on what is truly important and deepens my connection with my authentic self.
Dictionary.com defines sacred as the following. Sacred, adjective, connected with God or the gods, or dedicated to a religious purpose and so deserving veneration. Religious rather than secular. Writing or text embodying the laws or doctrines of a religion. And finally, regarded with great respect and reverence by a particular religion, group, or individual. There are many places we are familiar with throughout the world that fall under the first part of that definition, the connected with God or the gods. Stonehenge, Mecca, the cathedral at Notre Dame, to name a few. There are many more that fall under the last part of the definition, regarded with great respect and reverence by a particular religion, group, or individual. These places range from naturally formed spots like the Grand Canyon, Missouri's own Blue Springs, the top of any mountain you can think of. From there to places that have reached revered and respected status due to sacrifices that have been made surrounding them, such as the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. A place that holds deep memory for many, and one that has had its place in our collective conscience recently sanctified by the images of Representative John Lewis's casket being slowly advanced across its expanse. These are examples of our collective understanding of sacred space on the macro level of our society. We, the members of Columbia's Unitarian Universalist Church, also have sacred space at our facility on Shepherd Boulevard. Our sanctuary, where I am lucky enough to sit today by myself, holds sacredness for us, as does the meditation circle and the memorial garden outside our building. For some, our external grounds are sacred, and we have people who show up to tend to the plants and trees outside our building, caretakers of our connection to the web of all existence. And there is another place, a newer place, where our sacredness is now manifesting. A place that Joseph Campbell called a place where you can simply experience and bring forth what you are and what you might be. And that is our online community. This space where we gather in front of our computers and tablets and smartphones, this space too is holy. We have a means of connecting without physical presence, a space where we can continue to learn, to be, to become. Not just in the community of our UU congregation, but the whole of our online community, for we are connected far beyond the common thread that our church provides. Now, how we utilize this connection, how we are together and apart, online and in person, that can either be sacred, using the connection to become more of who we are and to live our principles, or it can simply be mundane. It is our choice. Here now, I choose the sacred. After this service, in our coffee hour, well, let's face it, for Unitarian Universalists, coffee hour is sacred in and of itself. But after that, when we get together by Zoom or FaceTime or Messenger or Skype or whatever, well, Christians have a scripture, Matthew 18, verse 20, that says, "Wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them." This tells me that sacredness is a choice in our times together. How we meet is as important as the fact that we do meet. May we consistently choose to use our connections to live in the sacred, and thus make all places so. Now is the time in our service when we join the spiritual practice of generosity, guiding our hearts away from the fear and scarcity around us and stepping into the sacred, remembering that it's by sharing and supporting one another that we feel most human. The link to our offering will be shared in the chat. Thank you, Jeremy and Hans. And now will you please join me in singing our next hymn, We'll Build a Land.
We'll
French theologian Hyacinthe Loyson delivered the following quote in Paris in a sermon in 1866, and I think we are all aware of one version or another of it. These trees which he plants, and under whose shade he shall never sit, he loves them for themselves and for the sake of his children and his children's children, who are to sit beneath the shadow of their spreading boughs. I think about this and see someone who is creating sacred space not only for themselves, but for future generations. Imagine, just imagine, if this was how everyone in the world thought. And now, in the words of our Reverend Molly Hausch-Gordon, may you go in blessing and be a blessing to a world that needs your care. Please join me in singing our benediction.
Now on leaving one another, may we give of hand and heart. Let us share our benediction lovingly before we part.
And thank you to all of you who make this possible this morning. Please join us for coffee hour. The link should be showing up in the chat and also on the screen. Be at peace.